Alright, we did it. We reached Act 3, which only means one thing. More deleted scene discussions. However, before I start doing that, I want to say one thing. I messed up. Yes, I have made a mistake, everybody. Absolutely uncalled for. And no, that mistake wasn't buying this for $30.
I didn't mean to do that.
My mistake was actually how I handled the deleted scene discussions for this review. And also just the way I released this video in general. This is interesting and relevant, I promise. Don't leave. Please, I want your watch time. So, as you probably know, this review is, or was, whichever is applicable, split up into parts. When I made the choice to do this, the reasoning I had in my mind was mainly so that the video would come out quicker, kinda, and also because I was experiencing various copyright issues. As of now, after more than a month of me having made the decision, I have changed my mind on the whole parts thing, as I have now figured out how I can edit my reviews in a way to keep them from being claimed. And also the whole frequently released videos thing doesn't matter for a channel like mine. So yeah, this whole multi-part review thing will not be coming back. Now, why does this relate to me talking about deleted scenes from Zootopia? Well, when I was first writing this review, I only saw it necessary to talk about the 3 deleted scenes that were mostly finished. I would say the reasoning for that is because they're from a more familiar version of the movie, but the real reason is that I'm just lazy. And this choice to not watch the rest of the deleted scenes carried over until I was editing the review. Literally, when I got to the part in the review where I started talking about the deleted scenes, I thought, hey, maybe I should actually look into the deleted scenes a bit more, in case there's something I want to talk about. And yeah, I'm glad I did that, because there's a lot of discoveries I made when looking at the deleted scenes of this movie. Okay, well, maybe not a lot of discoveries, but the original version of this movie is really interesting to talk about. So now, this is where the mistake I made comes in. Okay, so you remember how I wanted to start talking about the deleted scenes, but I already started editing? Well, the plan I had in my mind at this point in time was to finish editing the review, which at this point I had done 40 minutes of, and then at the end of it, I write in more scenes talking about the deleted scenes. However, when I got 40 minutes into the review, I started having copyright trouble. Despite me editing my footage in a way that shouldn't have been claimed, it was getting claimed. However, it was only getting claimed if the video was like over 40 minutes. I had also been away from YouTube for like nearly a month, so it was here, 40 minutes into the review, that I made the choice to split up the video I had into parts. And then shortly after making that decision, the first 20 minutes or so was released as part 1. Anyway, then I started editing what you know as part 2. Then when I was hitting the natural stopping point, I realized that that video nearly hit 40 minutes, and I still didn't write any new parts talking about the deleted scenes. However, I also didn't want part 2 to go over 40 minutes in case I experienced more copyright trouble if it did. And so I just left it at me talking about the deleted scenes I was always going to talk about since the beginning, with just a few new pickup lines saying how I would revisit the topic twice more in part 3. Later on in this review, I'm going to be having 2 more discussions about the deleted scenes, but that's enough for now. For now, I just want to talk about these. Once more for the storyboarded deleted scenes that were from a more familiar version of the movie, and then one final time talking about the older version of the movie that nobody ever saw. What I forgot about though, or just didn't look into enough or whatever, is that if we take away the almost complete scenes that I talked about before and the scenes from the older version of the movie we never saw, that just leaves 2 other scenes left for me to talk about that falls into this category of storyboarded scenes from a more familiar version of the movie. And if I had knew that before I sent off part 2 into the world, or if I hadn't shot myself in the foot in the first place and decided to make this review in 3 separate sections, I would have probably not talked about the deleted scenes 3 times, and would have probably come up with a more organic way of talking about them. Maybe I could do a video about all the bullet holes in my feet, I don't know. I'm kind of a massive dumbass who is also very self-conscious and very anxious all the time, in case you didn't know that. Anyway, there isn't really much I can do now without completely changing portions of the video or some ridiculous shit I don't need to do. So I just thought it would be best to explain why the pacing for this review is kind of weird and why the deleted scene discussions are also kind of weird. I don't even know how much of that story you understood. I tried to tell it as neatly as possible. Anyway, now that that spiel is out of the way, let's talk about those 2 deleted scenes. Okay, so the first scene to talk about out of the 2 scenes to talk about is an alternate version of the opening. And by alternate version, I mean it's like kind of the same, but like really different. And like it's a play and Judy's a child, but other than that, this scene is very different from the final movie. So the scene begins in a similar way as the final movie's opening. There's a kid talking about how animals used to be like actual animals instead of furries. However, instead of Judy being mauled to death and having her entrails ripped out as some other random kid. Also, in this version, the child pulls out like a fake squeaky toy heart, which I am very upset is not in the final movie. Also, the play ends here. None of these two animals are Judy. They're just a different group from Judy's, and their play was just exclusively torture porn. Okay, so after these kids are done and we get a laser pointer gag that they didn't include any variation of in the final movie, we then get a play from Judy and her disposable friends. I assume in this version of the movie, Judy already lived in Zootopia, as they sing about how much they love their city, rather than how much Judy really wants to move there.
What do we love about our city?
Then they sing about their future jobs. The woodchuck wants to work with wood.
I wanna work with wood, cause I'm a woodchuck.
Writing. The raccoon wants to drive a truck.
I'm a raccoon, so I'm gonna drive a trash truck.
If you don't see the correlation between those two things, may natural selection come for you. Okay, somehow when I was writing the script, I didn't realize that he said drive a trash truck. I thought he just said drive a truck and the word in front of truck was some word I didn't understand. I only noticed this while editing, so may natural selection come for me, I guess. I don't even know what that means. The squirrel wants to sell nuts.
Squirrels like me wanna sell some nuts.
I'm not making a joke about that. And Judy nearly says she wants to work with carrots before she realizes no. She doesn't want to work with yellow vegetables. She wants to do other things. But then her teacher, Miss Armadillo, tells her that animals shouldn't do some jobs because they're worse at it than others.
What if I wanna be an astronaut or a paramedic?
Judy, look, certain mammals are just better at some things than others. When I was your age, I wanted to be a firefighter. But armadillos ball up at the first sign of danger.
Then someone tells Armadillo teacher that some little shit got stuck in a tree. Miss Armadillo teacher curls up into a ball because payoff. And then Judy takes lead by grabbing the laser pointer used in that one joke earlier. It's like they say, if you have a laser pointer in the 3rd minute, establish it in the 1st. If you don't know that quote, then you're uncultured swine. Judy eventually saves little shit by getting him to stick to the tree from his interest in the laser pointer. I guess his claws dug into the tree so hard that he just didn't fall, which is confusing. Why didn't he just leave? Then a cop congratulates Judy for doing his job and gives her a fake badge, even encouraging her to become a police officer.
You should think about being a police officer.
She can't be a cop, she's just a bunny.
What the fuck? She just saved your sad, miserable life, you asshole. And that's the end of the scene. The one in the final movie is much better. Might have something to do with the fact that we just see a lot more in the final movie, or it just does a much better job of being concise, but also adding to Judy's character traits and character flaws and all that shit. Although, one positive thing about this deleted scene, it's a lot funnier than the actual movies. Next up is this scene where Judy takes Nick to her house. According to the directors, who, by the way, are at the beginning of all of these deleted scenes, well, I mean, most of the deleted scenes. This deleted scene about them going home takes place after the scene with Savage Mr. Muncher. Nick is apparently injured somewhere.
This actually took place right after Mr. Monchus had gone savage and Nick had gotten injured during this encounter.
And Judy takes her to a safe house with a space in the middle.
You said this was a safe house.
Yeah, safe house with a space in the middle. A house that is safe.
Fun fact, this bit of dialogue earlier in the movie.
You're under arrest.
For what?
False advertising.
I didn't falsely advertise anything.
You told that mouse the popsicle sticks were redwood.
Red wood with a space in the middle. Wood that is red.
I only understood after watching this deleted scene. I legit thought that Nick was talking about this little speck of beige colored wood here when he said space in the middle. And I even recorded a line for it in the review. Excuse me, sir, that is not a space in the middle. Anyway, my stupidity aside, as Judy and Nick head inside Judy's apartment, her whole family is here. Well, I mean, not her whole family.
275 brothers and sisters.
But enough of her family, I guess. Anyway, they're all there because she forgot to call her family.
You were supposed to call every day, and we got worried.
I'm assuming this scene is still in this version of the movie, and if that's the case, she was only given 48 hours to solve this case. There's 12 hours left at this point in time, according to this line.
We only have 12 hours left to solve this big case.
Which means Judy didn't call her family for 1 day. My calculator broke doing that. How'd they even get here? I know it'd be obvious to find her apartment room because, like, Jesus Christ. But how'd they know which apartment complex she lives in? And how'd they even get inside her room? Anyway, Judy's family eventually sees Nick, and like the racist, hick, red state southerners they are, they immediately get uncomfortable by his presence, even though he's literally just standing there. They even mention the fox taser.
Judy, quietly pass me the fox taser.
Like, not even a foot away from him. Wait, shit, I'm Canadian. Not even a meter away from him.
You have a fox taser?
By the way, I really like this really quick storyboard drawing of Nick. It looks nothing like him, but I think that's probably why I like it. Anyway, Judy tries to calm everyone down, but fails.
Dad, he's with me. It's okay.
You brought a fox to your home?
He's more than a fox, Dad.
Sweet cheese and crackers, he's your boyfriend.
Anyway, Judy tells her family that if they feel uncomfortable around Nick, then they should leave. And then one of Judy's siblings find her meter maid costume. Nobody knows she was a meter maid yet in this version of the movie though, so the family realizes that Judy lied to them about being a real cop.
Judy, you lied to me?
Even though she is currently on a missing person case right now. So right now, she is a real cop. Judy's dad then tries to take her home because her daughter is a liar and also made friends with a fox.
Okay, you know what, that's it. You're going home right now, young lady. I was worried about you coming here in the first place, and now you're lying and other things. Judy, this is not who you are.
But Nick then gives a speech that's reminiscent of the one he gave Bungo here, which is what the speech was eventually rewritten into because this part of the movie didn't exist yet.
So she lied about being a meter maid. Who wouldn't lie about that? Here's the thing. When I first saw Officer Toot Toot here, I thought she's gonna get stepped on. But you know what she said? Bunnies from the burrows do not get stepped on. They step up. And she has. We only have 12 hours left to solve this big case. You make her go back to Carrotville now. We'll never know if Officer Hobbs could be a real cop.
Well, I guess we could give her 12 hours.
There you go. Go on home. Make another baby.
Wait, what the fuck? Ah, yes, the perfect thing to say to your girlfriend's parents as they leave. Go home and fuck. I mean, sorry for being blunt, but that is literally what he said. I mean, not literally word for word, but anyone who's passed health class knows what those 3 words mean. Go home, make another baby. Why the why? Why would you? Wait a minute, actually, how are babies even made in this world? Looking back at the nudist colony scene, no one in this world even has any reproductive organs. Reproductive organs, okay. Well, I mean, I've already crossed the line at this point, so I might as well just say that nobody in this world has any or But regardless of what I actually end up saying, the point is still there. Okay, I'm not stupid, I know why. I just find it humorous to point out that baby making is a concept in this world, but at the same time, it makes no sense. And to make it make sense, Disney would have had to either cut this scene, which I guess they were too stubborn to do, or go the full-on NC-17 route and make this scene exclusively furry. I should probably just move on at this point before YouTube decides to fucking smite me. And yeah, that's about it. And yeah, I'm glad the scene is deleted. I mean, it might have been funny if Nick still somehow went to Judy's house in the final movie and maybe commented on how small it is or something. But other than that hypothetical scenario that didn't even happen in this version of the movie, everything good about this scene was still put into the movie another way. This is a perfect example of a deleted scene. It's interesting and not that bad, but it has no business being in the final movie. And strangely enough, neither this scene nor the alternate opening is in the Disney Plus Extras tab for some reason. That's pretty weird. Is it region locked or is it just exclusive to the physical movie's bonus features? Or YouTube. Whatever though, I watched the deleted scenes and now everything's right in the world. Except for the fact that this video's now slightly more messy because of my own foolishness. Anyway, now would be a good time to get back to the movie. Where was I again? Oh yeah, the shitty breakup scene. Let's see how seamless this audio transition won't be. Okay, so they split up, the movie is now slightly worse, and Judy feels bad. So to lighten the mood, I just wanted to point out this bit down here. Have you ever been arrested, charged, or received a notice or summons to appear? Or pled guilty to any criminal violation regardless if the record was sealed? No. I like how full of small details this movie is when you stop and pause every 10 seconds to look at everything. Kind of like what I did. With that being said, I will not lie to you, this movie, while it doesn't really fall apart in the third act, its quality of writing kind of dips, and I'll highlight examples that I find notable as we go along. This is why I said almost great in the title, by the way. Unless I changed the title again, which I tend to do every minute As the movie continues, we see that predators going savage is becoming a lot more of an issue around the city, as the mayor can't bring in his team of wolves to keep it quiet. The city is now being torn apart due to the incidents. Prey animals are now reacting a lot more negatively towards predators, as predators speak out against it. So the city's pretty much just having a race war. I'll come back to the whole race relations metaphor / allegory / symbolism / moral / message / statement / whatever else this could be considered in a bit. So just keep it in mind for now. Anyway, we cut to a shot of Judy working on what we can see as some sort of savage mammal report file, as Chief Bogo tells her to follow him somewhere. Something I want to note here is that Bogo's attitude in comparison to the beginning of the movie is a lot different, and I appreciate that the writers chose to do that. It shows that he had a change of heart when it comes to what he thinks of Judy because she solved all of the missing animal cases. What I'm saying is that this is a much better outcome than Bogo still hating her for no reason, even though she solved the missing animal cases. I like that. That's neat. That's coolio. We also see that Clawhauser, the receptionist, is being relocated because a predator is too scary of a thing to see first thing when you enter a building.
Clawhauser, what are you doing?
They thought it would be better if a predator wasn't the first face you see when you walk into the ZPD.
Clearly showing how bad things have gotten within the past week. Anyway, Bogo takes her to the new mayor's office, the new mayor being the sheep from earlier. She wants to make Judy the new face of the police force, as she's trusted by the general public by exposing this as a problem.
Our city is 90% prey. Right now, they're scared. You're a hero to them. So that's why I want you to be the face of the ZPD.
However, Judy doesn't see it that way, saying she is the one that made people believe that this is all the predator's fault.
I'm not a hero. I came to make the world a better place, but I broke it.
A good cop is supposed to help the city, not tear it apart. I don't deserve this bad.
So because of this, she decides to resign and go home, ending up working on her family's farm, which is what her family always wanted for her in the first place. However, they can definitely see something is very wrong here.
How we doing?
I'm fine.
You are not fine. Your ears are droopy.
To comment on what she just said, I like how if you go back throughout the movie, you can see that the droopy ears thing actually applies throughout the whole movie. When Judy's sad, her ears flop, and that's cool. However, and I know I'll probably undo the whole point I made just by saying this, I don't really know what Judy's mom was expecting, because she's wearing a hat, and there's no holes in the hat. Also, when I paused on this frame to write a bit more of the script, I noticed this sign here showing how the currency symbol in this world is unique compared to ours. That's kind of interesting. Anyway, someone comes over to visit, and it turns out to be Gideon, the bully character from the start of the movie, who grew up to be a great pastry chef and now works with Judy's parents because of what she told them at the beginning of the movie.
Foxes are the worst.
It's in their biology. Remember what happened with Gideon Gray?
Gideon Gray was a jerk who happened to be a fox.
3 weeks later.
We work with them now.
And we never would have considered it had you not opened our minds.
Also, this isn't really a flaw, but I find this kind of funny.
Gideon Gray. I'll be darned.
Hey, Judy, I'd just like to say I'm sorry for the way I behaved in my youth. I had a lot of unchecked rage and aggression.
Like you aren't going to confirm that's actually Judy first? First time meeting her in like 15 years and you're just like, I'm sorry, oh my god. Have you been preparing for this your entire life? Anyway, we catch a shot of some bunny children running through the garden and they nearly run into these flowers. These flowers are called Mindicampum hollythis. These flowers are called Mindicampum hollythis. Mindicampum hollythysius? These flowers are called Mindicampum hollythysius. These flowers are called Mindicampum hollythysius. These flowers are called Mindicampum hollythysius, or night howlers.
Don't you run through that Mindicampum hollythysius.
There's a $4 word. My family always just called them night howlers.
And it is a flower used in farming to keep bugs off produce.
Those flowers, I use them to keep the bugs off the produce.
However, when eaten, it causes animals to go crazy.
Terry ate one whole and went completely nuts.
Fit the dickens out of your mother.
Doesn't that sound familiar? Yep, these are what night howlers are. They're not wolves, they're actually flowers. And so Judy, with that information in hand, heads back to Zootopia in a rush.
That's it! That's what I've been missing! Hurry, come on! Love you, bye!
Are you ready to hear me, bitch? Okay, so first of all, how is the shortened version of Mindicampum hollythysius? How is the shortened version of Mindicampum hollythysius night howler. The only reason I can see for why these things are called night howlers are because the animals from earlier subduing the savage animals are wolves, and it was required for the plot.
Predators are the only ones going savage.
Yes, that is accurate.
Why is this happening?
We still don't know.
Why are they pointing their microphones at her? There's like a bunch on the stand already. There should be a connection between these two names, but the only connection I see is the writers writing in a twist. And the flowers aren't real, by the way, so they had free reign to call this flower literally anything. So instead of Mindicampum holysithius, why not call it something that could more easily be shortened to night howler? Maybe something like Midnight Howl Campus or something. Maybe not that name specifically, because that name sucks, but I'm sure these things could have had a different name as to much better fit the shortened version. The second thing I want to say is, she knew what Mindicampum holysithius was.
Those are a crocus varietal called Midnicampum holysithius. They're a Class C botanical, sir.
But she has never ever in her life heard the shortened version of the flower. She's just lived her whole life calling it Mindicampum holysithius. It's kind of weird. The third thing I want to mention, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the flowers, but more specifically the bug line, and this kind of extends to a greater irregularity, I guess you can call it, about the movie.
Those flowers, I use them to keep the bugs off the produce.
Apparently, in this world of civilized animals, there are still bugs that are like the bugs in our world. We saw them earlier in the movie, yes, but I was saving that discussion until now. Keep that fly thing in mind, it's important for one of my nerd rants later in the movie. Maybe I would be able to buy that bug thing, I guess, but the bigger thing I want to discuss is how otherwise there are only mammals in this world. There's no reptiles or birds, there's just mammals. That's a little confusing. Here's my personal guess as to why this is. This world is divided by predator and prey, and including reptiles and birds could make animals both predator and prey, thus making it less black and white as to who is who. That's not really an in-universe explanation, that's more of a technical behind-the-scenes explanation, but that's the best guess I have for why there's no reptiles or birds. Despite the fact that the Shakira song that's played in the movie mentions birds. Also, if there's only mammals, do whales and dolphins count? Or do they even exist? Do echidnas and platypuses count in this world? I guess they would know what eggs are if they count, because they're mammals that shit eggs. That's not... Now, nothing in the plot is necessarily made or broken because of the fact there's no birds or reptiles, and we don't know if whales exist or if echidnas or platypuses exist. However, it's still kind of weird, and I feel like even a casual viewer would start thinking about it. It's weird because there could be an answer to all the questions I just asked, but they don't really need to answer them in the movie. However, regardless, it's still like a weird thing to think about. Anyway, it's not really a flaw, it's just something weird to think about that doesn't really matter, because nothing about the plot is really affected by this in a negative way nor a positive way. Regardless though, I thought about it a lot and it confused me, and now my brain hurt. Okay, wait, how did I get here? I mentioned flies. I think I was going to talk about flies. Yeah, I was going to talk about why it's kind of weird how flies didn't evolve with the rest of the animals. I assume there's other insects too in this world if there's flies. How come they didn't evolve? I mean, mice were able to evolve and they're tiny compared to huge animals. You'd think that really tiny animals would be able to talk to the tinier insects, I guess. I guess flies and other bugs are just still bugs. Do you think these animals eat flies? Do you think like the predators eat flies so they have like a healthy amount of meat? Or do you think everything's just Beyond Burger? I meant to say Beyond Meat. Also, in the beginning of the movie, there's a part where you can see Fish Town Market. So clearly they know what fish are. What's populating the oceans? Are the oceans just completely fucking empty? Are those where the whales are kept in the dolphins? Are those the only underwater things, or are there fish? Because the word fish exists. I would assume they wouldn't just invent the name fish and call it something else. I mean, you could make a case that whales are fish. Oh no. My brain is hurting trying to think of this. What? Oh, I know. Okay, anyway, back to the movie. At this point, Judy's looking for Nick to tell him what she discovered about the Night Howlers. And I know that I just bitched about this movie, but I have a few other weird things to mention. Not necessarily flaws, but weird things, I guess. Where else would I mention this shit? First of all, I find it kind of funny how neither of these two thought to look up Night Howlers, or I guess alternatively, I find it funny how different the plot would have been if they just did that. Not a flaw, just something to know. However, what could be considered a flaw is how they found out about the Night Howlers to begin with. Remember earlier how I told you to keep this part in mind?
He was an animal down on all fours. He was a savage. He just kept yelling about the Night Howlers over and over.
Well, here's the payoff. Why the hell was Otterton screaming about the Night Howlers? Okay, so number one, he went savage, and given the appearances throughout the rest of the movie, they don't look like they're even able to talk. However, even if they could talk, number two, why was he screaming about the Night Howlers? It's revealed that he was infected by it, but how would he know what he was infected by if no one else in the city can't make the connection that what's happening could be triggered by Night Howlers? It's not totally unbelievable that he'd be screaming about the Night Howlers, I guess, but given those 2 points I just gave, it just seems like it was there to push the plot forward. Okay, wait, where was I? I bitched again. Okay, so Judy finds Nick so she can tell him about her discovery so they can right the wrongs in the city. Nick is still mad because of the fallout that happened earlier, and so Judy tries to make amends by admitting she was ignorant, irresponsible, and, small-minded.
I was ignorant, irresponsible, and small-minded.
Yeah. Anyway, after her very emotional apology,
I have to fix this, but I can't do it without you. And after we're done, you can hate me, and that'll be fine. I was a horrible friend, and I hurt you.
I've made a severe...
Nick forgives her, and after barely even 8 minutes of movie time, they're friends again, and this fallout is literally never brought up ever again. It's like it never even fucking happened. Whatever, though, they're friends again now, and Nick makes a quick joke mirroring their dynamic from earlier in the movie.
$200 a day, Fluff. 365 days a year since I was 12.
I really am just a dumb bunny. I really am just a dumb bunny.
I'll let you race it in 48 hours.
Keep that in mind for later. I want to bitch about it. Not like I've done that enough times in this fucking video. Okay. Anyway, they're driving around in the car now. Nick also eats some blueberries and saves some for later. I guess. I don't know. It doesn't really seem to be that important. Anyway, Judy brings up to Nick that she caught a criminal earlier in the movie who was stealing a bunch of Night Howler bulbs. She asks if Nick recognizes the thief, which he does, and they head over to his thriving movie sale business, where they make a super hilarious joke that is now completely ruined because Disney canceled Gigantic. God damn it. Also, am I the only one a little confused why all of the animal equivalents of these movies have animal names in them? It's not like it's called Wreck-It Human in our world. What the hell? Anyway, they question him about the Night Howlers as there's obviously a correlation between him stealing them and the animals going savage. But he refuses to talk, so they take him to Mr. Big's place. Yeah. Again, Judy isn't a fake cop. She is an actual cop. Why is she all buddy-buddy with this crime boss? I guess she just lets it fly or whatever because he helps her out with some stuff. But they're also threatening this weasel with murder. I can't be the only one that thinks this is weird, right? Like, what the fuck? She's even the godmother of this shrew's baby. So I guess Judy's just okay with Mr. Big, despite him literally being a crime boss and also him definitely killing people in this room. Maybe he promises to be good, or isn't that bad, or something. I don't know. Anyway, on the plus side, at least the weasel says this.
I stole them Night Howlers so I could sell them. They offered me what I couldn't refuse. Money.
Anyway, they find the secret hiding spot of Doug, the guy Weaselton was getting the Night Howlers for. Doug is a chemist, making Night Howler flowers into very tiny circular blue capsules and shooting them at his targets so they go savage. Yeah, he does a bunch of chemistry shit to make it so when they splatter onto whoever, they go savage like they would by eating it. This is why the animals are going savage, just because somebody's been commissioning him to shoot darts at all the predators. Also, I've heard there's a Breaking Bad joke in this movie, and specifically this scene. I haven't seen Breaking Bad, but even I can tell that this whole scene seems more like a reference than anything else here. I mean, maybe the whole Walter Jesse thing could be the joke.
All right, Walter and Jesse are back, so I'm leaving now.
But again, that seems more like reference than joke. Anyway, Judy hijacks their workstation, and because this is a train car, she starts it up with the intention to get it to the police station. This is where we get another action scene, consisting of the sheep trying to stop Judy and Nick from getting the train to the police station. Judy and Nick eventually outsmart them, but when making a turn, the train falls over because they were going too fast. The train crashes and also explodes because of some propane tanks, destroying all of the evidence. Luckily though, through the use of barely visible and kind of hard to buy quick thinking, Nick was able to save the briefcase containing the gun that shoots the Night Howler, and also a sample of it that was just made in the lab. They cut through the history museum that the subway leads to, and I just want to appreciate one small detail before I get very critical. It's obvious by looking around that the museum is under construction. Well, a little bit earlier when Judy was working with her parents, if you pause on this newspaper that Judy is using to package the carrots, you can see a news article about the museum renovations happening in Zootopia. That's pretty cool. Okay, so as they're running towards the police station, the new mayor is already there to retrieve the briefcase. However, Judy, before she hands over the briefcase, wonders why she's even there. So, how did Bellwether know they were there? Well, because the sheep was actually the bad guy this whole time.
Get them. We're on the same team, Judy. Predators may be strong, but prey outnumber predators 10 to 1. Think of it, 90% of the population united against a common enemy. Should have just stayed on the carrot farm. It really is too bad. I did like you.
That's it. Prey fears predator and you stay in power?
Yeah, and I'll dart every predator in Zootopia to keep it that way. I can frame you. It's my word against yours.
It was me all along.
Assistant Mayor Bellwether.
Bet you didn't expect him to be the bad guy.
Yeah, that's really something.
Holy shit, what a twist! The sheep that's gotten a total of 3 minutes of screen time prior to this turned out to be the evil mastermind the whole time? How unpredictable. How interesting. How original. How cool. How... Fuck you, Disney. I don't know why for like the past 20 years... I have no idea why for like the past 20 years, twist villains have been the thing to do rather than just having regular villains. But what I hate about it is that it results in shit like this, where the mere fact that there's a twist villain bogs down the rest of the movie. Look, Zootopia is pretty good, but it's pretty good in spite of this. And this is probably the biggest flaw of the entire movie. Now, like with the second act breakup, I again can see some positives in this. Like for example, when they're visiting Bellwether and looking through the traffic cameras, you can see this piece of paper on Bellwether's phone that says Doug and his phone number. Also, now we know why Bellwether was so supportive of Judy. Helping her with the case would also expose the animals going savage and cause Zootopia to have the whole race war thing. And at least she has motivation, even if it is really bare bones for a movie that's honestly way better than this. She wants to be in charge and to rule over all, and she can harness the power of racism to obtain it.
So that's it. Prey fears predator and you stay in power?
Yeah, pretty much. And I'll dart every predator in Zootopia to keep it that way.
Come to think of it, we don't really see what she would have done with that power, other than just divide prey and predator more. So she's pretty much just really racist. Yeah, okay, never mind. Anyway, that's all the positives I can really see. There's a tiny bit of foreshadowing, and now we know why she helped Judy. Now, the negatives. Okay, so one of the worst parts about this villain is that she's revealed in like the last 8 minutes of the film, not counting credits.
Run. Get them.
And despite her having a motivation, there's no real hints to it at all, aside from this one sticky note. And it would have maybe been fine if they threw a few more hints of it throughout the movie or something. But no, I guess it's just a really well-kept secret. It's such a well-kept secret that it actually confuses me as to why she would want to do this. Also, notice how she isn't really mad or sad about anything. But that'll be important for later. On top of coming out of just absolutely nowhere, she's also very forgettable and bland and just evil without really being interesting. It's like there's a complete personality shift. One thing that could have made this villain a lot more interesting maybe is have her act like she did in the beginning, but she's evil. Make her mannerisms act nice, but her motivations and what she's doing evil. Maybe make it so she doesn't even know what she's doing is all that bad. Make it so that she has a justifiable reason in her own head to do this, other than the fact that she's just evil, instead of just giving her an angry face. Honestly, there's so little to this villain that I'm actually kind of having a hard time explaining why this villain is so bad, because there's just nothing to this character. This villain is so fucking bad, I'm having trouble explaining why she's so bad. Now, with all of that being said, this villain doesn't ruin the movie. I mean, yeah, it's absolutely made worse because of it, but it's not like this was the mystery the whole time. The mystery throughout most of the movie was, where did the otter go? And not really, who is the evil mastermind? Well, I mean, it was in the last act, but imagine how much worse the movie could have been if the entire movie was figuring out why predators were going savage, and this was the payoff to that, instead of just finding out where they went. It doesn't make the whole movie fall apart, it's just really cheap and lazy and bad. The more I keep digging into this, the more it just pisses me off. You had this great movie with great writing, great characters, amazing animation, great action scenes, and an engaging mystery throughout, and in the last 10 minutes, you have this bland, uncreative, cheap, lazy, stupid, shitty, out of nowhere twist villain that almost fucks up the whole movie, but doesn't just by the skin of its teeth. God fucking damn it, Disney. Why? 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 Oh yeah, and that's not the only shitty twist in this part, but I'll get to that later. What I want to get to now is the whole allegory of this movie, considering this villain's motivation.
Predators may be strong, but prey outnumber predators 10 to 1. Think of it, 90% of the population united against a common enemy.
So, if you somehow don't get it by now, or I've just been doing a really shit job of explaining the movie, which is very possible. This movie is commenting on real-world race issues and racial bias and stuff like that by using animals as a stand-in. Like I mentioned earlier, that's probably one of the reasons why the writers chose to only feature mammals, because it's easier to make a set of majority and minority animals when there's only mammals. The prey are the majority and the predators are the minority. Preds are also the animals that are targeted with more negative attitude and bias. And basically the whole movie, or more specifically the third act, is essentially commenting on racial bias and how it can affect people, or animals in this case. The whole message of the movie pretty much is to not be discriminatory and to treat everyone as equally as possible to create a better world. That's a pretty good message for a movie, especially a movie that will attract a very large audience of children. Making a movie aimed at children where the message is basically discrimination is bad is honestly kind of an important thing to have, especially right now considering the state of our world, and that's why I'm fine with how blatantly obvious this message is. Also, again, I appreciate how the characters of this movie being animals actually means something. It isn't just a decision to make the characters cuter or easier to animate. However, despite the overall message being good, the actual execution of it is kind of questionable and a little confusing. When you look at the context of everything that happens in the movie, you start to realize that maybe the way they portray the message is not that well thought out. Okay, so here's an example. The whole allegory starts becoming obvious after the fallout with Judy and Nick. And at this point in the movie, prey animals start fearing predators again because predators are going savage and hurting people. It's revealed to all be set up, but no one knows that throughout the movie. So honestly, it kind of makes sense that prey would start getting scared of predators, considering all the general public knows is that predators are going savage. The fear isn't completely unwarranted, and that's A, another reason the fallout isn't as strong as it probably should have been, and B, it kind of confuses the social commentary. There's also this question I want to pose about this world. How much of this world is a mirror of ours? Or alternatively, what is okay in this world that isn't in ours? This is an allegory, but it's not one-to-one with our world, and that could also probably cause some confusion, as there's some things that happen in Zootopia that if they were to happen in our world would kind of be frowned upon and insensitive. Example, throughout the whole movie, Nick calls Judy carrots, even when they make up.
Carrots, 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 carrot, carrot, carrots, 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 carrots.
I brought this up earlier, and I briefly mentioned how she's against it the first time, but as the movie progresses, she doesn't doesn't seem to care for some reason. Now, the reason why Nick calls Judy carrots is because bunnies love carrots, I guess. However, it's not like all bunnies eat carrots, or bunnies eat nothing but carrots, even in this world. So would bunnies eating carrots be considered a stereotype? And would Nick calling Judy carrots be offensive? I mean, it is maybe the first time.
You're gonna want to refrain from calling me carrots.
But she doesn't care for the rest of the movie, so I don't really know. To me, nicknaming a bunny carrots is kind of like nicknaming a white person casserole or something. Also, there's a lot of stereotypes in this movie regardless, despite this movie also kind of trying to fight against them. Like in the sloth scene, the sloths really are slow. You'd think given this movie's message, Judy would go in thinking all sloths are slow, but then Flash would work at a fast pace because he's evolved and his diet is different, and Judy gets a lesson in stereotypes or something. I'm not saying that would make the movie better, nor am I really saying that would make the movie worse. I'm just saying that seems like a scenario this movie would do, because this movie is trying to fight against stereotypes. Also, what about slurs? Earlier in this movie, Judy said a bunny can call bunnies cute, but it's offensive when other animals do it.
A bunny can call another bunny cute, but when other animals do it, it's a little...
This is apparently a stereotype thing, saying bunnies are cute.
I am so sorry. Me, the guy everyone thinks is just a donut-loving cop, stereotyping you.
But is cute a slur in this world? Or is it fine to call some animals cute and some not because it's derogatory? Is it kind of like this word, where depending on if you're American or not, the level of offensiveness changes? Like an American saying that to another American wouldn't be considered offensive at all, because in America, that isn't an offensive word. However, an American saying that same word to a UK person or vice versa could become very offensive considering the history of that word in the UK. Is it similar with cute in Zootopia, where if one animal says it to another specific animal that isn't a bunny, it's fine, but if that same animal says it to a bunny, it's now offensive or something? Was that a sensical comparison? I don't know. I think you got what I was saying. Also, another thing, while there is predator and prey in this world, there are also tons of different species in this world as well. Would all of those be considered different races, or different people in the same race? Some animals dress up as other animals, like this fox dresses up as an elephant, and this wolf at the end dresses up as a sheep. Would that be considered offensive in this world? Is this comparable to like a woman playing a man in a production in our world? Or is this comparable to a white person playing a black person in a production in our world? Is this sheep face? Or is it not, because this movie's world isn't an exact mirror of our own, but it's different in ambiguous ways? I can't be the only person who sees how some of these things might confuse the message of the film, right? Anyway, the overall message, or moral, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, is good. But the allegory, or I guess just what we see, is kind of confusing and flawed and ambiguous in ways where it probably shouldn't be given the film's message. Anyway, that's about it when it comes to the race allegory, I guess. But no, we aren't going back to the movie yet. Now that we finally talked about this movie's race allegory, I feel that now would be a good time to finally finish off the deleted scenes, and specifically talk about the movie that Zootopia could have been. So as I've said earlier in this review, the original version of this movie was almost completely different from the version of the movie we see now. From the description I found on the Lost Media Wiki and the various pieces of deleted footage I've watched, here's a rough and incomplete idea of how different the story was from all of the info I was able to find. I might get a few things wrong here, just make sure you know that. This is me just making my best educated guess based off of all of the footage I've seen. In the world of Zootopia, prey and predators live together, and they coexist in peace. As long as the predators have their shock collars on. Yeah, so in the original version of the movie, predators had shock collars to keep the prey happy, and if the predators got too mad, it would give them a little zap. They receive these shock collars at a young age. When they turn a certain age, they are usually thrown a taming party, where they're welcomed into the world of Zootopia by being given a taming collar. Our main character in this version of the movie is Nick Wilde, a predator. One day at the doctor's office, he needs to get his collar taken off for a checkup. When it's finally taken off, he's in pure ecstasy, and it's a feeling like no other. But then it gets put back on him.
No, whoa. Can you just give me 5 more seconds?
Unfortunately, no. If I had $1 every time I heard that,
you'd be the richest mammal in Zootopia.
That's when he gets an idea. Wild Times. A place where predators can take off their collars and just have fun.
You know, they say you can't put a price on happiness, and I say you can. Bang! There it is.
He gives his pitch to a bunch of banks throughout the town, but everybody rejects it because they think it's stupid, or they hate him, or they think it's stupid. He eventually goes to the mafia, I think, and eventually gets funding from them. Nick eventually creates Wild Times, and it's a big success, even being able to pay back Coleslaw, or however the fuck you pronounce his name. However, I think because of the fact that it wasn't funded legally, Nick disguises this Wild Times place as a doctor's office, and you can only enter by using this movable wall thingy. I assume this is like a reference to the fact that he got this idea at a doctor's office. One day, Nick is framed as this wolf, who in the bonus features is revealed to be a sheep in wolf's clothing, shoots a dart at Nick, which makes him go savage, which causes some sort of chain reaction and gets Wild Times discovered and also shut down. And that's really about it when it comes to the plot info I'm aware of, and also I'm confident by saying this was probably going to be the original movie. I know that this scene in the Disney Plus bonus features happens much later in the movie, but that's about it. One thing I want to point out here is that there's two videos here on the Lost Media Wiki. One of them is a collection of deleted scenes, and another one is a supposed recreation of. Okay, hold on, let me just pause the video for a second. I know this is stupid, but when I was getting the footage for that like deleted scenes bit where I like show the video, I actually noticed that there's an extra line in that particular video that isn't in the Disney Plus Extras tab. And that one line kind of changes a lot of the scene, kind of.
Every day is a battle. Buddy, give us a little toot. I am not going to be the one to tell him that you're just a fox. Every day is a battle. We even talked about species reassignment, but I can barely afford all the peanuts as it is, so I got in this little trunk. Buddy, give us a little toot. I am not going to be the one to tell him that you're just a fox.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to mention. One of them is a collection of deleted scenes, and another one is a supposed recreation of the original plot. I didn't pay this one any attention, just because I don't know how accurate it is to the original version of the script. So I didn't want to rely on this as if it was fact, just in case they got some things wrong. Regardless though, even with the very limited portion of story I have here, this is really interesting. I'm sure you know what I mean by now when I said that this was a completely different movie from what we actually got. Whether it's better or worse, I can't particularly say, only because it's so different from what we got, and we know so little about it. Or at least from the looks of things, it's a lot different. Apparently Byron Howard, who is pretty much the guy who came up with Zootopia, changed the story because it wasn't working for him. It felt too dystopian, according to this quote. Thinking about it, this is more of a story about segregation rather than bias. In my opinion, because I can't see this movie because it doesn't exist, this would have made an interesting story. However, the message that the film would eventually have in the final version is certainly more relevant to modern times. Anyway, the whole reason I brought this up in this video is because I just think it's interesting that they had this whole different movie planned. It's not even a case of it being another story that could be told in this world, like Rogue One, only in Zootopia. This original story, from the looks of it, is so divorced from the Zootopia we eventually got that it's almost like looking into an alternate universe. To be honest, I really want to see this movie. Like, I want to see what this alternate version of Zootopia would have been. This definitely would have been a more mature version, I guess. Like, it's kind of interesting. I don't know what the right word is. Anyway, I'll end the discussion off here. In previous deleted scene discussions, I talked more about the scenes than I did here. The reason I'm not going to go deeper into these scenes is because this is from a different version of the movie, while the other deleted scenes from the previous two discussions were from a more familiar version of the movie. I felt it was appropriate to talk about those in more detail because they could have been in the actual movie. While with these scenes, they are, again, so divorced from the movie we eventually got that I feel it wouldn't really make sense to review all of these. Also, there's the fact that I don't have all of the deleted scenes from the old movie, so, you know, I can't really review them all. I feel the most I can really do is just talk about how much of a different beast this movie would have been, as that's the only thing I can really say in confidence here. Anyway, now that I'm finally done talking about the deleted scenes, as well as the other things I discussed in this past quarter hour, let's finally head back to the movie. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so at this point, they know that Bellwether's the big bad and are running away now. Okay, I got it. Okay, so Judy and Nick are running away from the big bad wolf in shit's clothing when Judy scrapes her knee on a mammoth tusk from a statue that's just on the floor. Nick tries to help her as he gets out the blueberries he saved earlier to use the cloth as a bandage. They eventually think of a plan and run away, but are knocked into this place by the ram, dropping the evidence case with the syrup gun thing. Then after, this.
It really is too bad. I did like you.
What are you going to do? Kill me?
Oh, of course not. He is.
Bellwether shoots a night howler at Nick and turns him savage. Then Judy and Bellwether have their hero-villain conversation that I don't really know what it's commonly called, but nonetheless it happens in like every movie where there's a twist villain.
Hero cop killed by savage fox. Think of the headline.
So that's it. Prey fears predator and you stay in power?
Pretty much. I'll dart every predator in Zootopia to keep it that way.
And then Nick eats Judy. Well, no, JK, it was just a prank, bro.
Blood.
All right, you know what, you're milking it.
You see, instead of shooting a night howler at Nick, turning him savage, Bellwether shot a blueberry at him, and it didn't do shit, and Nick was just acting like he was savage, so she would give away all the info to the police.
And I'll dart every predator in Zootopia to keep it that way.
Now, on its own, this twist is fine. Swapping out the night howler for a blueberry makes sense and is a much better twist than, this. However, the execution of the twist is the thing that really needs work here. So a few minutes earlier in the movie, when Judy picks up Nick to help find the weasel, Nick directly mentions the blueberries.
I thought you guys only grew carrots.
And is very obvious with his eating and storing for later of said blueberries. Then, like 2 minutes later, after you've probably already forgotten about the blueberries, we see the night howler capsule that's been used on the animals throughout the whole movie. And it kind of looks like a blueberry, although your brain might not make the connection, although it might. Maybe. Then fast forward to this part, about 5 minutes after we saw what the capsule looks like, and around 7 minutes after it's established that Nick has saved blueberries in his pocket. He takes out his blueberries and spills them everywhere while he's using the cloth as a bandage. He even asks Judy if she wants a blueberry, directly calling attention to it.
Blueberry?
Pass.
And then barely a minute later, the sheep shoots him with the night howler gun. I think you can see the issue here. The issue being, as soon as you see the blue spawn on Nick, you're thinking, oh yeah, they just swapped out the night howler for the blueberries because they look the same. Now, maybe if you just took out the cloth with the blueberries and just threw them off to the side to use the cloth, that would be fine. As I wouldn't say it's a stretch to assume that some people would think that the blueberry thing came out of nowhere if they didn't show the blueberries at all in this part, as they might have forgotten about this bit earlier. But directly calling attention to the fact that they have blueberries multiple times just kind of ruins the surprise of the twist. It's not like this is as bad as the twist villain. The problem with that twist is that the twist sucks and makes no sense. This twist with the blueberry would actually be pretty good if they didn't give it away right before. It's like saying the punchline of a joke before you even make the joke. It's a better twist, but they needed to work on the execution. Also, one other thing, how are those blueberries not completely smushed into paste after that whole train thing? Also, one other thing, not to really do with the blueberries, but still kind of related to the twist. Earlier in the movie, it's not really told to us, but it is shown to us that the eyes of animals affected by night howlers, like, increases in size, or dilates or changes in some way. So that's kind of a dead giveaway that Nick's not affected by the night howler, especially considering they zoom in on his eye almost to like tell the kids, don't worry, Nick's faking it. Even on my first ever viewing of this movie, I knew something was up because Nick's eye doesn't really change at all. One thing I do like about this scene though, I like how Nick pretends to bite Judy. I don't know why, I just find that funny. It probably made some 6-year-old kids shit their pants in the theater. Anyway, they revealed to the sheep that it's all a prank and they show off the recording that they made while she was giving away her whole plan, reincorporating a bit from earlier in the movie.
365 days a year since I was 12. 365 days a year since I was 12.
I really am just a dumb bunny. I really am just a dumb bunny.
And I'll dart every predator in Zootopia to keep it that way. And I'll dart every predator in Zootopia Zootopia to keep it that way.
You didn't think I was done complaining, were you? Okay, so first of all, if you remember earlier, Nick had the carrot pen this whole time. Keep that in mind for later. I want to bitch about it. Not like I've done that enough times in this fucking video. And while it would be fine if he was recording what she said, we don't see him holding the pen at all. However, if we were to assume that Nick actually gave Judy the pen back despite what he said here.
Don't worry, Carrots. I'll let you erase it in 48 hours. Are you just trying to steal the pen? Is that what this is?
We also don't see Judy holding the pen. So how did they record her saying everything? You're making it really hard to argue in favor of you, movie. Also, one other thing I noticed while editing that bit, Bellwether says this.
I framed Lionheart. I can frame you too.
You didn't frame him though. It's not like you imprisoned the savage animals and then pinned the blame on him. He was the one that was imprisoning them to protect the city. It's not framing, that's just him committing a crime to fix your crime. It's not framing. So the police come out of the darkness to arrest her and... Okay, so where were they in this part?
And I'll dart every predator in Zootopia to keep it that way.
Just hiding in the dark the whole time? Or did they come as soon as the fake-out happened and just waited for Judy and Nick to finish their epic burn? Actually, come to think of it, what the hell was Judy and Nick's plan anyway?
Get it to Pogo.
I'm not gonna leave you behind.
I can't walk.
We'll think of something.
I mean, yeah, replace the Night Howler with the Blueberry, but what were they expecting to happen after that? They're still stuck in this dome. Was them falling into the dome part of the plan? Was the plan to make a run for it to the ZPD and this was a backup plan? If this was their backup plan, how would they escape this backup plan? How did they know the sheep would shoot them? How did they know that the ZPD would show up right at the end there? How did the ZPD even show up to begin with? Did Judy call the police? If she did, you'd think she'd do that earlier when they found the meth lab. I guess they just heard her screams and decided to wait until after they did their epic prank or something. This plan is confusing and or unfinished. I don't get it. Why is this specific part of the movie so weird and stupid? We then see a news report showing that Bellwether has been arrested and that J.K. Simmons was only falsely imprisoning those animals to protect the city, and that he had no idea she was behind it.
Did I falsely imprison those animals? Yes, I did. Classic, doing the wrong thing for the right reason.
Lionheart denies any knowledge, claiming he was just trying to protect the city.
He's also still in jail, by the way. I guess because he's still responsible for the missing animals. What a time to be alive in Zootopia. 2 mayors arrested within the span of like a week. Actually, thinking about it, I don't know why City Hall was pestering the chief to find the missing animals so much if the mayor was behind it the whole time.
We have 14 missing mammal cases, and City Hall is right up my tail to find them.
Also, in other news, the people that are affected with the Night Howlers are getting better because of an antidote. It's not really relevant to anything I want to talk about. I just want to mention it because it's part of the movie. Anyway, Judy gives a speech thing about how anyone can make a difference in the world, which is sort of relevant to this movie and what happened, I guess.
When I was a kid, I thought Zootopia was this perfect place. Turns out, real life is messy. We all make mistakes. We all have limitations, which means we all have a lot in common. And the more we try to understand one another, the more exceptional each of us will be. But we have to try. So no matter what type of animal you are, I implore you, try to make the world a better place. Change starts with you. It starts with all of us.
Well, that speech is very vague in terms of how it relates to the rest of the movie. And she officially inaugurates Nick into being a cop. I think inaugurate is the right word. She makes Nick officially a cop. Yay, they're cop partners now. And they even share the same chair because they're like 1/20th of the size of everyone else. Anyway, Chief Bogo comes in and assigns everyone their duties. And after everyone leaves for their assignments, Nick and Judy are assigned parking duty by the chief.
Parking duty. Dismissed.
And nobody learned anything in this movie. The end.
You got your shorts and life left.
No, I'm just kidding. They're signed something different.
Just kidding. We have reports of a street racer tearing up Savannah Central. Shut him down.
They're signed traffic duty. So yeah, this is pretty much just the ending of the movie. They're both cop partners now. Nick still hustles popsicles, I guess.
Sly Bunny.
$10.
You know you love me.
Do I know that? Yes, I do.
Well, at least it's confirmed that this ship is like actually canon, I guess. Unless all the furry art of these two online is entirely ace though, it's still factually inaccurate. And the movie ends with another sloth joke because as it turns out, the street racer was actually the sloth from the DMV.
Flash, 100-yard dash.
Nick.
Wait a minute, how does he even drive the car? If he's like taking his foot off the pedal, wouldn't he like take 10 seconds to stop whatever, the movie's over, so I guess it doesn't matter. And then it just cuts to some random fucking concert for the credits, because you can't end an animated movie without a dance party. Yay, I'm done with the movie. It only took me like a fucking decade. Zootopia is a good movie. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the writing and the characters and the chemistry between those characters and the animation and the mystery, they're all pretty great, or at least pretty good. It's just that after the breakup scene and moving into the third act, everything just kind of gets a lot worse. After the breakup scene, the build-ups this movie's been building towards just end up disappointing, and the quality or writing or whatever really dips. It doesn't ruin the movie or anything. The third act is fine. It just doesn't really live up to what the previous acts established, and it could have been a lot better. You know, in case you didn't get that, I only talked about the third act for like 50 minutes. Zootopia is pretty good. Almost reaching greatness, but it's just held back by what I can only assume was a rush to wrap things up. However, it's not like this is the only story that could be told in Zootopia. Tons of people talk about wanting a sequel or a TV show to follow up this movie, with Nick and Judy solving more mysteries around Zootopia or something like that. That would be pretty cool, and I think it's a massive wasted opportunity for Disney to just sit on this world that could hold so many more stories. Considering Frozen 2 and Ralph Breaks the Internet came out 6 years after their first movies, we still have until the end of like 2022 until we lose all hope for a sequel. That's refreshing. I mean, we do have this Zootopia plus anthology thing coming eventually, but what I'm talking about is like an actual series or sequel with the two main leads. I just hope that if there is a Zootopia 2, Disney actually gives them the time to make it good. Frozen 2 kinda sucks, but it's not because the creators didn't try. They tried their best under a very, very tight deadline. I just hope that if Zootopia gets a sequel, it won't suffer a similar fate. I like to think that's why there hasn't been a trailer for this movie yet. I like to think that they're working on a sequel in complete secrecy, and they'll reveal it only when they know the movie's worthy, or at least not a complete mess. So I genuinely hope that someday I'll get to make a sequel to this video talking about Zootopia 2. Or whatever the fuck they decide to call it, I don't know. Judy and Nick break the internet. I just hope that if there is a sequel, it isn't so bad to the point where I just give up reviewing it halfway through.